If somebody is so wounded and they can't function, it's either they're going to die or you got to do something to stop it to get them out. We can't just always grab and go. It is treat, then get them, and then go. They have to dodge enemy fire, they have to defend, and they've got to keep their head together enough to be able to look at a patient
and know how to treat.
And know how to treat them under enemy attack.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? MZ here, and coming to you with Detox.
Good morning.
This is a very special week. We've got Veterans Day coming, and as you're gonna get loaded down with all sorts of free goodies. Take advantage of it. Go get your free dinner, your oil change, your whatever.
Donut, Starbucks.
Oh, hello. Yes,
we have friends that go out and it's like a thing. So they go through and they do it out of fun and they make a list.
Yeah, there's a whole schedule.
And then they go, okay, we'll get a donut and then we'll get a coffee and then maybe they'll go to an event and then they'll go to dinner and live it up.
Look, veterans, if you are hungry at the end of Veterans Day, it's your own fault.
Yeah, you didn't do it right.
You did not plan accordingly. Your piss poor planning could have prevented that poor performance. Do not go to bed hungry that night.
That's right.
In addition to it being Veterans Day this week, we also have a special situation going on here on the home front. Detox, did you want to make a special introduction?
My mommy's here.
Hi, Mom.
Hello. I didn't tell her that we were going to bring her on just to say hi. But I said if I did, she would have got all worked up over it. So I was like, I'll spring it on her in the morning. She's sticking her tongue out at me now.
Mom, the myth, the legend, and really, I'm pretty excited that you're here with us too, because you birthed a living legend, a veteran right here.
What do you get that, Mom? Living legend. Where's my brother? He needs to hear this.
No comment.
It's funny.
Damn. No props for Detox.
I love you.
Thank you.
Heart. So, you ready to get into this, Detox?
We are. I know we're being hams, but it's an important day, and we want to honor people that did some pretty cool shit. And all veterans across the board, we honor every single one of you. But since this is Bullet to Bedpans, we are going to highlight people in the military medical community that doing some pretty cool things. And we're going to do a little tour through history, right?
Yeah. All right. So get you a hot cup of something, pull up a chair, and let's do a little dive, right?
All right.
As we know, Veterans Day occurs each year on November 11th. And when we were prepping for the episode, I was wondering, I was like, man, I wonder what the difference between Armistice Day and Veterans Day is. I've heard them used interchangeably. The way we view Veterans Day now is slightly different than how it used to be. So it's the 11th month on the 11th hour of every year, and that started in 1918, which was the signal of the end of World War I. And at that point, it was known as Armistice Day. So in 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower officially changed the name of the holiday to what we know it now as Veterans Day. And well before even Armistice Day in the early 1900s, medical personnel in the military have pretty much blazed trails that shaped how we do business even today, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the first we wanted to talk about was, and we're going to try and do this in chronological order. And full disclaimer, if something is a hair out of order or maybe slightly mispronounced, sorry in advance. Did the best we could, and you can let us know if we got something out of order, but we did our best.
We did.
So, starting off with Dr. Benjamin Rush. Didn't know this. He was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, and he also wrote the first American preventive medicine textbook for Army physicians. So we're talking late 1700s here, right around the time of the Revolutionary War, and his published work actually inspired George Washington to have the Continental Army inoculated with the smallpox vaccine, which is something we're still even doing now. I know probably every veteran listening to this right now has a tiny dime-sized scar
Oh, yeah.
on their upper sleeve, right?
I think mine just finally went away after decades. Yeah, I used to have that little mark.
How much vitamin E and
Right.
cream you have to put on that thing after the fact. Them things get gnarly. And ever since then, right, countless people have been successfully immunized, and that's a big part of our medical readiness across the board for military personnel. And we partially have Dr. Benjamin Rush to thank for that. Up next, we've got, during the War of 1812, Dr. James Tilton, who was another American soldier, physician, and surgeon general during the War of 1812. He was in command of some number of hospitals between Morristown, Princeton, Jersey, and his concern at the time was with the high death rate of contracted diseases in the hospitals, which is what inspired him to create well-ventilated ceilings, which at the time were known as Tilton huts, which were basically windowless huts in little buildings divided into sections with the idea of getting better ventilation to help combat the spread of disease. So in 1790, Congress passed Tilton's Code of Regulations for Army Medical Departments, which redefined how hospitals are built today. And some of that blueprint is still in effect, which still is meeting the intention of what he had all those years ago in 1812. So totally a trailblazer ahead of his time.
So it's funny that you're talking about that because then if you go back to, we're going to go on the nursing side, Florence Nightingale now was not a military officer, was not a military veteran, but she was a veteran, right? She, in the nursing community, she was credited with the founder of nursing. She did something similar to Dr. Tilton, which was clean up the sanitation, right? And get ventilation going and all that. So she worked, was during the Crimean War, 1853 to 56. She worked in British military hospital in Scutari, Turkey. And this is where she started strict sanitation. She was organizing improved patient care and provide compassionate nursing. And all of that reduce the death toll among the wounded soldiers. And we all, when we think of Florence Nightingale, I think of opening windows, airing things out, getting ventilation. So I can't help wonder if she took some notes from Dr. James Tilton there and
Perhaps so.
and maybe moved forward with that. But because of those two, we just have much better sanitation. It was the beginning, for us, it was the beginning of modern nursing and modernizing medicine, right?
A big deal, that whole sanitation thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. All right, so that was the earlier, up to the 1850s and continuing during that time. What you got over there, MZ? There's another cool one.
So here we are in the time of the Civil War. And this particular person is, I like this story. I wasn't familiar with it up until recently, but I really like the story of Mary Edwards Walker. So she was a doctor who was the only woman in her medical school at the time, and she went to school in 1855. Her medical practice floundered, though, because people just didn't trust female doctors. It was new, it wasn't established like it is today, and people just were not on board, unfortunately.
Can you imagine the uphill battle of that? You're going into now, at that time, an all-male profession.
Totally dominated.
Yeah, and she got in there and got it done.
She handled business, man.
She did. Badass number one. Here we go.
So Mary Edwards Walker volunteered her service to the Union Army, but wasn't allowed to enlist, which is crazy in itself. A whole freaking doctor, whole degree behind her, and couldn't even enlist. Forget being an officer, couldn't even enlist.
Couldn't
So
join nothing, yeah. But willing to volunteer,
Yeah,
right? I
and
mean, which is why we're willing to mention it, because how crazy is that to go on front lines volunteering?
as a doc.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what she did. She served as a volunteer, which then later worked her way up. She was honored as a nurse. Gee, thank you.
Took the higher road.
And she was later ministered to the wounded at the first Battle of the Bull Run and worked her way into the position of a field surgeon's assistant. She, in her own way, worked her way up, I don't want to say the corporate ladder because that's not what this is, but noble positions, right? She was doing things that women of her time weren't allowed to do, and she still found a way to make it happen.
But how frustrating, because she couldn't serve as a doctor.
Nope.
She couldn't even enlist. But then when she was volunteering, they're like, oh, it can't be a doctor.
Yeah, still looked down upon, still watered down.
Because you're a girl,
Yeah.
A little stereotype here, because you're a girl, you can be a nurse,
Yeah.
right? And then she's fine, right? So here's this nurse that has a whole other level of knowledge, right? Probably doing a lot more care than people realized. And then worked her way up to a field surgeon's assistant. Still not even
Not
able.
the field surgeon, but
the
you can be the
assistant.
assistant.
Bunch of douchebags.
Right.
Okay.
So she was later awarded an Army commission in 1863. So she ended up getting a commission. Cool, we'll take it. But she was still technically designated as a civilian worker. Kind of odd verbiage there. It's, we'll let you in, we'll let you be an officer, but you're still technically a civilian, okay?
Don't break up the boys' club.
Yeah. So weird, right? Walker was taken at one point by the Confederacy as a prisoner of war for several months in 1864 because she was accused of being a spy. On top of all of the medical aid she was rendering, she was later taken POW, and she continued to serve until the end of the war. And in 1865, Walker became the only woman ever to receive the Medal of Honor. Respect.
Oh, at the Battle of Bull Run, right?
That's right. And then after the war, she went on to campaign for women's rights, temperance, and at one point ran for political office. And all of this she had in the bag before women even had a right to vote. Seriously, kudos, Mary Edwards Walker.
For another badass.
Yes.
Holy crap, that's a lot to go through. And to think, we're talking about veterans and what they've done, medical, healthcare workers, military medicine. I'll say it in a minute, military medicine. But when this also has a lot to do with breaking glass ceilings for women, and I don't know why this popped in my head, but it wasn't until 1980s before women could have their own credit card. To sign, yeah, you had to, before you could have your own.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I know, and 80s is not that long ago. I'm still here, right? And were you even born?
I plead the fifth.
She was a youngin'. But to think about that and where she broke a ceiling and how far it's come, I don't know. It just always makes me stop and think, and just mad respect for people that were willing to take these steps for future generations.
The work of Mary Edwards Walker is being enjoyed and appreciated by women of our time now.
Yeah, all you women doctors out there, whether you're military or you're civilian, Mary Edwards Walker, she was breaking the glass ceiling for ya. Mad respect. All right, so then we go into American Civil War, and we talk about Clara Barton. And in the nursing community, you say Clara Barton and you say American Red Cross, right? They go hand in hand. She was a pioneer in nursing during the American Civil War, and then she did go on to establish the American Red Cross. And again, she was not in the military. She volunteered. She was not allowed to be in, but she volunteered for service. And she provided medical care to the wounded soldiers on the battlefield and in the hospitals, which kind of makes me think, since if that's how the American Red Cross got started, was it one of those situations of, oh, you're not going to let me in? Then I'll figure out another way. And now here we are having the modern day American Red Cross that we all know works closely. You say emergency, you think, I need to get a hold of somebody, American Red Cross, right? During the Spanish Civil War, this is an interesting one. I pulled this because I just thought we need to give mad props for people that were breaking through and moving medicine along for the community. And in the military medical field, there were like these people that we've been talking about that were not in the military, but they were on the front lines doing this work. And I'm sorry, you got to give respect to that. And they were moving medicine forward because of it. So Dr. Norman Bethune, he was a Canadian physician, and he served as a surgeon during the Spanish Civil War and then the Second Sino-Japanese War. And he is actually credited for mobile blood transfusion units and then contributions to battlefield medicine. That's a game changer. To now have mobile transfusion units, I have no idea what that looks like. I probably should have looked a little closer. But all I could think of is them like chasing down people like, hey, you, come here. I need your blood. But however that looks, right? This mobile blood transfusion unit, now people have more of a chance at survival. We got to give props to that guy.
Yeah, that does make one kind of curious, though. I think about mobile blood units now, and you see the American Red Cross mobile blood banks all the time on the road, doing drives. I am curious what that looked like in that era.
Yeah, I don't know if they were doing, I mean, they weren't like filtering it. I mean, they're passing on a lot of
Crud?
I mean, I'm sure it's not the best blood, but hell, it's better than nothing.
It's volume.
Volume's volume. Better than a glass of water. Moving on. We're into World War II. What have we gotten there?
So this is another story a lot of folks are familiar with the story of PFC Desmond Doss. So in 1945, then Private First Class Desmond Doss had become the first conscientious objector to receive the Medal of Honor. And the story of how he got it is pretty amazing. Doss was a devout Seventh-day Adventist who was wanting to serve his country, but he did not want to hold a weapon. He refused to kill. That went very much against him and his values, his upbringing, but he still had that willingness, that call in his heart to serve his country, right? So he prayed constantly and wouldn't work on Saturdays, and I think this was a source of contention between him, his superiors, his peers.
Could you take today, could you imagine one of us going, I'm sorry, I'm not working on Saturdays?
Yeah, just wouldn't hold well, right?
They needed people.
Yeah, and they needed people who were willing to do the good, bad, and ugly, and that just wasn't in alignment with his faith base, right?
Yeah.
So to a point, I understand that, but it didn't gain him a big following at first. It was definitely a source of frustration. So much so that his commander at the time had tried to expel him on a Section 8 discharge, and he was not getting friends, right? It wasn't until he was deployed to the Battle of Okinawa that he really got to prove himself, his worth, and just how amazing he truly was. He proved his bravery. He was a medic at the time. And during the Battle of Okinawa, like I said, in 1945, they were fighting for several weeks. And during that time, he saved approximately 75 lives while they were under heavy munitions, heavy artillery. These guys were being mortared. They were under heavy machine gun fire. And according to the Medal of Honor citation that he received, Doss was wounded himself by a grenade while carrying out other individuals on his retrieval missions. So he had dressed his own injuries, and while I think he was up on the hill for upwards of 5 hours waiting for somebody to come get him, he continued rendering aid to other people.
All without weapon. He wasn't.
Yeah,
he couldn't
he
defend
wasn't
himself
armed.
with a weapon, right?
Mm-mm.
Unarmed.
Nope. So unarmed, treating himself, treating others, waiting for probably what felt like forever for somebody to come render his aid. He continued just one more. And it's pretty amazing. Ultimately, a sniper ended up shooting him in the arm, breaking his bone. And even still, Doss made a splint out of a rifle stock, crawled 300 yards to an aid station, and I think the final number was close to 75 people that he was able to save during that battle. And his story is just particularly amazing to me. I was stationed in Okinawa for 4.5 years and got to see where some of these things happened and visualize at the time, wow, I'm standing on a field where amazing things happened, and kudos, PFC Desmond Doss. His story is amazing.
Yeah, the first conscientious objector as the term coined. Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And you have to give credit to knowing yourself, standing for your beliefs in an environment that is constantly trying to change you, right?
Yeah.
You give credit to that. And was just a badass, saving all those people and
proved all the naysayers wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you had said in there too, I don't know if you had mentioned it, but I saw that they were trying to get him to cave to the idea that he was mentally unstable.
Yeah.
And he's, no.
Nope.
Sorry.
Just firm in his faith.
Yeah, this is where I stand. Take it or leave it. And they took it, right?
And thank God they did, because he was able to save countless lives.
I'm curious. We'll have to go research this. They tried to Section 8 him. Why it wasn't successful?
I saw the movie. I don't know the validity of that, so I don't want to speak on it too much, but I don't know. We'll have to GTS, Google that shit whenever we get done here, because now I'm curious.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Who's next here?
Captain Benjamin Lewis Salomon.
Yeah. So this one I thought was really interesting. I didn't find a lot of info, but I just thought we need to include it. He was actually a dentist. It was during World War II, again. He was a dentist, but he served as a combat medic in World War II. And he was actually KIA. He was KIA. He was killed in action while he was defending a field hospital in the Battle of Saipan. And he was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. But here's a dentist that was like, yeah, I'm going to serve. He goes in as a combat medic. He's got knowledge, but he stepped right up and gave it all. Life on the line, everything. That was pretty impressive. So
Dentist, combat medic.
he needed a shout out for that one, yeah.
Whatever needed to be done.
Yeah. Who do you got?
All right, so still during the World War II era, we've got hospital apprentice first class Robert Bush. Like PFC DOS, Robert Bush was also in Okinawa.
He was a baby, too.
Yeah, he was 18 years old at the time, and while finding a casualty with a gaping chest wound, Bush actually knew the soldier needed to get an immediate infusion of blood plasma. So he inserted the tube, held up the blood bag, and started the process, which is what a medic does, right? Unfortunately, during that process, Japanese soldiers then charged at them. So while delivering this bag, Bush pulls out his pistol, opens up fire while holding up that blood bag. And then when his gun ran out, he picked up a rifle that was sitting nearby. During that whole process, he was hit by shrapnel from 3 hand grenades, one of which hit him in the eyes. And even with all of that going on, Bush continued to fight and defend his patient.
Damn, he needed Dr. Bethune's mobile blood transfusion unit.
Totally.
Holy crap.
Totally. And maybe a little bit of PFC DOS's prayers, because that is a situation I can't imagine being in.
And he kept defending his patient.
Well done.
I don't know if anybody, civilians are listening, there's very specific rules for the military medical community. We fall under the Geneva Convention. And we cannot function as a combatant. We cannot pick up a gun and just go out there and start shooting people. That is not part of the rules. We can defend. We are armed to defend. We are not armed to attack. And so here are these people, and if you really put your head around what's going on, when you're coming under attack, we all know what comes first, the safety of our patients. So we are putting ourselves in between the attacker and our patients and defending that at all costs. And in the middle of that, rendering whatever care, because it's not going to do any good if that patient dies. There's not much to defend at that point. If they need, like this gentleman, he's rendering aid and defending at the same time. If that's not an ultimate mindfuck, that's some serious, you are responding. And I say this because I want people to understand how well trained the military are to be able to respond like that.
And that's at 18 years old.
At 18 years old, they are trained to respond, not to flee, not to run. They are trained to fight. And there you are, 18, right? I don't know. It always impresses me when I read these stories, just how well we perform. So here's another one. We'll go on the O side. Captain Ramon L. Lago. Now, this is during Vietnam. We're moving ahead a little bit. And he was awarded a Medal of Honor during the Battle of I'm going to say it properly, Lo Jian in 1968. And he was exposing himself to enemy fire to treat and evacuate wounded soldiers. Because you remember, you get out there, and if somebody is so wounded and they can't function, it's either they're going to die or you got to do something to stop it to get them out. We can't just always grab and go. It is treat, then get them, and then go. They have to dodge enemy fire, they have to defend, and they've got to keep their head together enough to be able to look at a patient
and know how to treat.
And know how to treat them under enemy attack. Come on now. If that's not badassery, I don't know what is. Now, this one is very near and dear to most of the military nursing community, and probably I would say a lot of the military medical community, but definitely the nursing community. We all learned this when we came in. And this was actually a very neat story. So during Vietnam, there was an operation that went on to get the Vietnamese babies out of Vietnam. They were the parents. I can't even imagine doing this, but they've got to get them out of country. And so the U.S. is doing Operation Baby Lift on C-5 Galaxy aircraft, right? And there are multiple planes going out. Now, here's a cool fun fact. I actually know one of those babies. She actually became one of a flight nurses when I was in the military as a flight nurse. And she became a flight nurse.
Talk about coming full circle.
And yeah, she told me the story. Now, she wasn't on the plane that crashed, but she was on one of those planes, right? And I believe she came out with her mom, if I'm not mistaken. But in April 1975, these were the final days of the Vietnam War, there were 2 nurses on this specific C-5. And the first one we're going to talk about is Mary Captain Teresa Klinker. And she was stationed in Philippines during Vietnam, and her job was to help get these orphaned Vietnamese children out to safety. And she was a senior flight nurse on this Operation Baby Lift flight, and this plane crashed. And it was a nasty crash. So it literally, I don't know what the malfunction was, but it crashed. And it went like through a rice paddy, became airborne again for about a half mile, crashed again, and then tore into about 4 pieces. Mary Klinker, unfortunately, did not survive. But she was one of the nurses on Operation Baby Lift on that flight. And she has actually got a posthumous air medal and a meritorious service medal. And you actually can find her name on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. She was also the last U.S. service member to die in the Vietnam War because the war was wrapping up, right? There was another nurse that was on that flight. First Lieutenant Regina Aune, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, Aune.
I love this story.
I know. This one is very near and dear because, in all honesty, I've heard more about Klinker than I did about this story. And this one it's unfortunate that Klinker did not make it, but what this woman did, she is a badass. So when the plane crashed, she was thrown the entire length of the upper deck. And I don't know if you guys know what a C-5 looks like, but they're big planes. And they look like they give birth to a 130. They're huge planes. And there's this upper deck. And when the plane first crashed, she was thrown the entire length. And then she survived that, and then it crashed again. And amazingly survived it. That by itself is a shocker. She helped carry 80 babies to rescue helicopters.
80, not 18.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it's all muddy. There's a rice paddy field, and it's all muddy, and she's got to go through this muck. And so she's bringing these babies out. Just get the visual, one after another. You're not carrying 80 babies at once. So she might, if she jimmy rigs something, got 3 or 4, right? So she's bringing out...
Screaming, crying, scared,
sure.
just
Injured,
been shooken up.
Injured, everything, right? So bringing them out to the helicopters, getting them out. When she was unable to continue, she asked the first officer she saw if she could be relieved of duty, and then passed out. They found out later that she was saving these babies with a broken foot, a broken leg, a broken vertebrae, and numerous other injuries.
Hello, adrenaline.
You saved 80 babies broken. I was like, holy crap.
And then kept it together long enough to say, hey, finally somebody's here. Can I pass the torch?
And then I'll pass out.
And then I'll pass out. We can cry about it later.
But it even gets more impressive that she became the first woman to be awarded the Cheney Award. But the real impressive part is that she retired as an Air Force colonel in 2007. So she came back and finished her time after all of that. And she retired as an Air Force colonel. So
we were literally walking amongst a giant.
I want to go find her. I do. I really hope she's still alive. So if anybody knows her, we want to talk to her.
Totally.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I thought that was mad respect. All right, moving forward into some more modern things. We have a couple here. And I want to say right now that we picked out some because we could be doing this for days. And we just thought going through time and history would be a fun way to do it. But we know there are so many people that are badasses and that should be honored. And if you know somebody and we get enough of them, heck, I'd do a whole second one and honor all of these guys and girls and everybody. But moving ahead to OIF, Operation
Iraqi Freedom.
Oh my goodness, my brain just went sideways. Yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash. He was a combat medic in the Army. He was awarded a Silver Star for his bravery and selfless actions. He rescued some fellow soldiers from a burning vehicle in Iraq in 2005. And if a lot of you guys that may not be military happen to be listening to this, everybody probably remembers the convoy to Baghdad, right? So, and this just popped in my head, so I'm gonna pull this in right now. There is somebody that I want to honor because she is a badass, and she was an Army medic, and she was one of the first medics out there on the convoy. She was up in the turrets, right, on the tanks in the turrets as they were convoying to Baghdad. And she was amazing. I know her personally.
Is this somebody that you had worked with?
It is somebody I had worked with, but just into Nicole, I'm talking about you, girl. She's amazing. She was handling business out there as one of the first convoys, and she taught me a lot of stuff about some of what they had to go through. Things like, did you ever pull a gun on a 9-year-old? She's try that one. You have to determine if you're going to get shot or be shot or shoot.
How do you stay alive out there?
And you're a mom. She had a mom of 3 kids.
Which brings into play the moral injury attached to me or you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was always impressed with her. She taught me one time we were doing a recon out in Army camp, and we were looking to do some exercises out there, and we went out there and we ended up in an area where they were training security forces. And I don't know if I mentioned this on another podcast, but I might have, but she was saying, we went up in the back and we saw this big...
Oh, is this with the toys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys do like toys for tots or something? What is all these toys here? And they're like, no, it's desensitization training. And that's when she said to me, she goes, until you have a 9-year-old pull a gun on you, nobody's prepared for that. And what he said, the gentleman giving the tour, was when you see a toy, it's a psychological trick that they do. So when they see a toy, they actually will put it out there and it triggers you thinking of your child. Maybe your child had that toy. Innocence and all that stuff. And that toy could be loaded with a bomb. And so they use that. And so we have to desensitize people from seeing all this stuff, right? And that was a deep breath when she was saying that to me. She goes, until you have a 9-year-old pull a gun on you, ma'am. She goes, that's invaluable training right there.
Is Jacinda still in?
No, she is retired. I was happy that I went to her retirement. She retired as Master Sergeant. She's phenomenal. I would have worked with her any day. I'd follow her into any battle. Really good person and combat medic. Yep. So I wanted to give a shout out because it popped in my head. I knew it would. I was like, I'm going to think of other people as we're doing this because that's how my brain works. All right.
Let's talk about another pretty amazing medic. So this was in Afghanistan, and we're talking about Army Specialist Monica Lynn Brown. Again, 18 years old. We're not talking about people that have 20, 30 years of experience behind them. These are relatively young people who were brave enough to raise their right hand and literally go into war and do amazing things. So Monica Lynn Brown was part of the 82nd Airborne in Paktia province, Afghanistan. The year was 2007. So roadside bomb had gone off as their convoy was passing by, ultimately wounding 5 soldiers and setting their Humvee on fire. Brown ran through the gunfire and mortars to reach the soldiers, who managed to leave the burning vehicle, and then she shielded them with her body. Brown ultimately received a Silver Star for her bravery and was also pulled out because of regulations barring women from combat. So I don't know exactly what the situation with that was.
How did she get in, first of all?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what happened with that or if maybe there was more to the story. But the important thing is that we're highlighting what she did while she was there.
Oh, yeah.
During the fire. That's lives she saved, and the ripe old age of 18 to be brave enough to say, that's okay. I'll shield you, take care of you.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got your 6, and she was there.
Wow. That's impressive. All right. So we have a couple more here we want to talk about. Sergeant First Class Petrie. Leroy Petrie. He was an Army Ranger and a combat medic. And he got the Medal of Honor because during a firefight in Afghanistan, he was treating wounded soldiers, got injured. You hear this story, right? They get injured themselves, and then turned around and saved 2 other Rangers by picking up and throwing an enemy grenade. So the grenade comes in, it's an enemy grenade. He didn't have one on him. The grenade comes in, and you're brave enough to grab that. You don't know how much time you've got before it's going to click off.
And it is a game of hot potato I don't want to play.
And you're like, psych.
Take it back.
It's yours. Yeah. Damn. Again, young guy. I don't know how old he was, but if he's Sergeant First Class, still pretty young. I mean, he's got a little years underneath him, but yeah, another one that jaw-dropping. Adrenaline and training. You put those together and insane things happen. Good insane things. And then Captain Jennifer Marino. She was an Army nurse, and she was awarded a Bronze Star and Purple Heart for her actions in Afghanistan in 2013. She lost her life while she was saving wounded soldiers during an IED explosion.
There's actually a building clinic, a whole clinic named after her.
Oh, that's right. Absolutely right. You're right. So that is the list we put together. Like I said, we could have gone on and on. There's so many, but
this is just the list of the medical
yeah.
folks. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if we even touched on a fraction of the everybody else stockpile?
Gosh.
There's amazing things being done, and I know we're usually over here gritty and grinning and full of dark humor, but this is one that just, we're wrapping up, and I've just got this sense of gratitude and just profound respect for each one of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know there's a lot of you out there that are getting it done. There's a lot in military medicine that are the silent heroes, and they're doing it every day. And you're getting in there, and either you're just working, not just, but you're getting up every day, pulling those shifts. And anybody that's never been in a hospital working, there's miracles happening every single day there. And we're now at a time where we're post-COVID, and that medical community has been shredded. There's a lot of people that have left the medical community on all sides. This is a time where coming out and becoming a nurse and getting a job is very easy right now. Very easy. A lot of times in the medical community, and combined with the military medical community, it's like a seesaw. Sometimes the civilian community can be full up, and the military is like, hey, we want you. And other times it can be the opposite. And this is a time where everybody needs them across the board. And it's not just nurses. They need medics. They need nurses,
RTs.
Yes, everybody.
CRNAs, everybody.
Yeah. So they're tired. This community is tired on both sides. And I think it's just good to highlight a couple people that have given in the past. Some are still with us, some are not. But I think it's really good to honor all our veterans. For all you guys out there, you're badasses. We love every single one of you guys, and we appreciate you. And we're just honored we get to take the time to pull together a whole podcast to honor you guys. So
Happy Veterans Day, guys. Truly. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a dysfunctional family, but I wouldn't give it up for the world.
it's like a whole bunch of cousins.
Yeah.
That just get annoyed with each other, or siblings that are like, oh, I can beat on you, but nobody else can beat on you.
Exactly.
That's who we are, right? We still get up, get in there, and we get it done. So, got anything else?
That's it, Detox. That's all she wrote.
All right. My mom walked off. She didn't want to be on it anymore. She was sitting here listening, and so she had enough, I guess, after you
She had
told
enough
her.
of our crap.
After you told her I was a legend, she was done.
She's, you're already full of crap.
She's Happy Veterans Day. Be off. All right, everybody, this is Bullets to Bedpans, and we're just happy to be with you guys and have some time to share all this with you. We hope you can like, share, comment. We want your comments. We want engagement. The more we talk, I think the better it is for everybody. And from all of us here to all you, happy Veterans Day and peace out.